Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first official episode of the Bay Street Barons podcast brought to you by Stocks Club. This is your hub for all things finance and stock market related. I am your host, Farhan Saeed.
I'm Alex Costores.
And I'm Nuwair and
We're more than excited to be here kicking this off with you guys today. So, before we get started, just a little disclaimer, a little explanation about who we are. We're three university students from the University of Waterloo studying finance, and in no way is this podcast intended to be financial advice or expert advice or anything of that sort. We're just a couple of students who want to give our insight and our educated opinion on the world of finance. So, without further ado, I think we can get started. And yeah, how you guys feeling today? First episode.
I guess I'll start off. The markets. How is the market looking today? I think it had a bit of a dip, but overall it's been pretty good for the past couple of weeks, so not feeling too bad. How about you, Alex?
About the same. The S&P looks like it had a little bit of a dip, but it looked like it recovered closing close to market end, which is good. But it looks like people are getting very afraid of the possibility of hyperinflation due to all the COVID spending.
Exactly, and that's kind of I think one of the main topics we want to start with today, just kind of a general overview of what's going on. And yeah, like you said, hyperinflation. I mean, a lot of COVID spending. A crazy statistic that I'm sure a lot of us know is that 22%, which is like a fifth of the U.S. dollar, was printed in 2020 alone. That's a value of I think $9 trillion. What do you
That
guys have to say about that?
that's insane.
That's a
Absolutely insane.
lot, and
Yeah, that's a
it can swing one of two ways. You could have a situation where you have a tremendous bounce back in the economy, meaning a lot of consumer spending, a lot of consumer investment in you know improvements, which we've seen during the pandemic. Other things like shopping and all that, tourism's a big one, and that way it would kind of offset that huge chunk of money spent versus if there isn't that bounce back, you're going to see a large amount of inflation. And the worst possible scenario is something akin to the 1980s or early 1980s, which is not good. Rates were 20%.
Yeah, and
no, definitely.
just for those who don't know, Alex, you want to maybe clear up a bit more on what happened during that time, or what was the economy like during that time?
You had it was a period of what was referred to as stagflation, so stagnant economic growth accompanying inflation. So you had I don't remember exactly the actual inflation statistic every year. However, rates during the early 1980s did get as high as 20%. I think it might have been higher, could have been lower, but it was around 20%.
Yeah, and I mean we could be looking at possibly going back to some sort of period like that if, like you said, some crazy consumer bounce back doesn't happen. But what are you thinking, Alex, in terms of the odds of something like this happening? I mean, do people have money in their pockets right now, post-COVID era? Is that something that's highly likely, or what do you think?
Um, I I I don't think the consumer bounce back will be large enough to offset that potential, just because what you had is you had a lot of the governments giving out stimulus checks, and what we've seen is a lot of this stimulus check money, people were stuck at home, so they just spent it on whatever they wanted. Some people spent it on, you know, things that they couldn't quite afford before the pandemic, but now, I'm home, whatever, like a home improvement,
AMC.
pools, some stocks, and one of the biggest ones that I saw is like weightlifting, like exercise equipment. It's like $2 a pound to get weights. It's incredible.
Yeah, huge business. I was guilty of wasting some money there, but that's a different
Yeah,
story.
also guilty.
Um, yeah, that's a big business right there. Yeah, nowhere. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and
What
I
do you
think
think?
we're talking about something that's gonna affect all of us. I mean, just now we know how hard it is for our generation to, in the future of buying houses and such, and something like this is definitely not gonna help. I think another point that is quite important is that the government can't stop now. Like if they stop like printing this money and basically put a stop to the growth that's been happening unnaturally, then all that what has happened is going to come right back down, and we could see, like Alex said, something. We've seen in the past what happens when inflation rates rise that much.
Hmm.
Um,
Definitely, definitely.
and
I mean, are we gonna? Yeah, go ahead.
and speaking of inflation, someone else quite notable is betting on it taking place.
Oh, the second Big Short, the bigger short, as to say.
I hope it's not.
Well,
I really hope it's not. If it is the bigger Big Short, then it's not going to be pretty.
I think okay. Well, let's give a little bit of oversight on this before we talk about it for a minute. But as many of you might know, Michael Burry, who's well known for his prediction of the 2008 mortgage crisis. I can't speak. Also depicted in the famous Hollywood film The Big Short, played by Christian Bale. Absolute amazing film. He's made another insane bet this year. I think it was early. No, when was it? Early 20. No, late 2020. Sorry. Against Tesla. I think it was about what was the value, Alex? Do you remember? Something like half a billion, 500
Right.
million, 500
The
something million.
the total value of his position, or the leveraged up value, not what he put into it, was about
Yeah.
500, maybe 550 million.
Yeah, that was about something like 8,000 put contracts. Unknown strike price, unknown expiry. I'm sure many of you watching this saw the news on this. There was a whole lot of hype going around about a week and a half ago. But that's a big bet. And so I know, Alex, you had some thoughts that you wanted to share, I think, on that and a little bit
Um,
of
in
inflation.
regards to Michael Burry, the Tesla bet doesn't interest me as much, as by now he's probably out of it with the dive Tesla took in early 2021. I'm much more interested in the inflation bet he's taken, considering the last time he bet against the U.S. economy, it that paid out, or it definitely was correct. So this one seems to be a lot more, how to say, like, relevant and substantial, considering his track record. And if it does pay off, it's not going to be pretty.
Definitely, but I mean, what's the historical data looking like for, puts against, bets against Tesla?
And before we get into that, just for anyone who doesn't know what a put contract is, just like how you can buy stocks wanting them to go up, you can buy these contracts, like a call and a put contract. Call contract is pretty much when you think that the price of a security is going to go up, and as it goes up, the value of your contract also goes up. And again, put contracts work in the opposite way. If the value goes down, your contract goes up in value. So call, you want it to go up, put, you want it to go down. Just to clarify that for anybody who didn't know previously.
Yeah, thanks, Noor. It's essentially a bet. You're betting against a company, to put it simply.
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, but yeah. Sorry, what were we talking about earlier?
I think we just got through Michael Burry and his
Yeah.
inflation bets.
Yeah, no, so the historical data. So what is that looking like? Bets against Tesla in the past, have
His,
they generally turned out to be,
historically, bets against
successful?
Tesla don't typically pay off. However, considering he probably entered his position Q4 of 2020, when Tesla was around a high, and then in Q1 to mid Q2, I think we're in now, of 2021, it's been going down. I think it's down about $100 since year start. So I believe he's probably exited his position by now and taken his profits, but it looks to me like he's probably made money on it, which is rare.
Yeah, yeah. There's a good chance. And I mean, I think I agree with you on that. I don't know about you, Nowhere.
And yeah, no, I definitely agree. And just another point is that even if I mean, Michael Burry, he's not afraid to lose money in the beginning to get that big win. If he needs to, he will stay in a position, for quite long. And so even if, let's say a year from now, we seem as if everything's gone back to normal, he might still very well be in his position, hoping for something bigger. So there's always that chance as well. But no, I definitely agree. I think he has probably taken some profits by now. He's made some good money if he entered the position, like Alex said, near the end of what was it, Alex?
I think I'm not sure, but I believe he entered the Tesla
It
at
was
in
like
Q4.
December-ish,
I
around
think it
there.
was
Yeah.
December 2020. I
Yeah,
think that's correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, so and I mean to tie it all back kind of to what you guys are both saying, essentially the question that remains is has he covered his position considering, this bet was made quite some time ago, or is this all kind of part of some sort of larger package of long inflation positions? Right? That's kind of the final question.
I think he's still in
And
the inflation game because um, if you look at the current administration in the United States, they have planned for a lot more spending coming out of the economy. So they like you already had all the COVID spending, and now they're putting a whole other heap of spending on top of that, and that very well be, or that very may well could be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and the consumer bounce back isn't large enough to offset that spending, then you could have a bit of a problem for us that aren't taking up Burry's bet, but for Burry, it's not exactly a problem.
yeah,
yeah.
Burry's always laughing when the rest of the world is is
Crumbling.
just bro, yeah. That's the type of guy he is. But he's a smart guy is really what it is. He's a smart guy.
And
So,
with
yeah,
inflation,
no, go ahead.
people are looking for hedges against inflation, and the people aren't going to the traditional one, which is gold. They are going to
Cr-
cryptocurrencies, which I believe is our
Bitcoin.
next topic of conversation.
Mm,
Was just about to bring it up exactly. So because yeah, so continue. So you think people are okay? So people are kind of moving over to crypto, to Bitcoin in particular. Let's talk about Bitcoin for a minute because I think that's the hottest one, right?
Right. So Bitcoin, I believe, I don't know, I'm not in the crypto realm, is generally perceived as, the main one or the big one. On our screen right now, I have the daily chart for Bitcoin up as today is June 7th, and they're down 5%. But if we look at the monthly, yikes.
that does not look pretty.
Yikes.
That
That
does
is
not look
not,
pretty.
that is very, very not pretty. You're looking at 59 to 34 as it sits right now.
If that was a
And,
stock that I owned, I would be in quite a bit of trouble.
right, so you have a lot of different people with very different opinions when it comes to cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin. Um, you have a lot of people that like on the one end of the spectrum, you have people saying Bitcoin's going to replace gold. On the other end of the spectrum, you have people saying there shouldn't be cryptocurrencies at all. You know, and it's just very early. There's not a lot of regulation around it, so it's very hard to tell where Bitcoin in particular will be in the future. However, I truly believe that the blockchain technology as it stands is here to stay. Like blockchain by itself, very good, here to stay. Bitcoin, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah,
I would
Farhan?
say
yeah,
like I agree, but I would say that I think in the future, if there were certain changes, like we're talking about regulation to come to Bitcoin, if Bitcoin wasn't as volatile as it is now, I think there definitely could be a future. I don't know if it's going to be the currency of the future, but I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. I think there are changes though that need to be made. Way too
Right.
volatile for a normal person to invest. Again, you can make money, but again, you wouldn't. If you look at Apple's chart, like we are talking about, I think a couple days ago, look at Apple's chart. It's not doing that yet. Right here, Alex has pulled it up for those who are watching on YouTube, and again, it's not. It moves around, but it's not dropping almost 50% in value in a month.
yeah. And I mean, if we wanna even like look at some crazier statistics just for the long term, I guess the future of Bitcoin really. Let's talk about this the environmental aspect of it and just how sustainable is Bitcoin really. I mean, I don't know if you guys know one Bitcoin, and I'm talking and all the statistics that are going to follow is assuming that we're using the average mining power of an ASIC. You guys know the it's like application specific circuit or something. You know what they use to mine Bitcoin. You guys
Right,
know what
like
I'm talking
the
about, right?
big rigs of all the graphics cards.
Yeah, yeah. So one Bitcoin, at I think 10 minutes of of mining using the average mining power takes 72 terawatts. Okay, that's equivalent to 121 something terawatt hours a year, which this gets crazy, is more electricity used than all of Argentina, the entire country
Wow.
of Argentina.
Wow.
And like
So
you mentioned Argentina, and like it was a story I just saw it this morning, so I'm not like sure the nuances of it. But the president of, I believe it was El Salvador, came out and was saying like they're adopting Bitcoin or something like that, and they're incentivizing people that use Bitcoin to come to the country. I don't know. It was just like
what?
I was reading it this morning and thinking, what? Like, don't you guys have a currency? Because I don't know what their situation is with their currency. If it's something like Venezuela, where it's pretty much worthless, that's probably why they're looking to switch to Bitcoin. But I'm not sure what the El Salvador dollar is worth.
And I think that's why
No
people
idea.
like Bitcoin or are in favor of it so much, that these countries where there isn't like a stable currency, like you mentioned, Venezuela. I can't think of any much more off the top of my head, but where the currency isn't of that much value or is not, and the economy is um, very weak in the sense that you don't know what's gonna happen. A lot of people do put their money into Bitcoin in the hopes that, okay, at least I know for a fact that I can take it out and maybe it's gonna grow in the future. But then when there's stuff happening, like if someone invested in Bitcoin or put their money into Bitcoin when it was at 59,000, right now that's just cut in half almost pretty much, and then at that point you're like, okay, well, where's the regulation? What is there something happening in the background where there's large whales people like with large amount of money in Bitcoin who are dumping this and causing the price to fall so much, like Elon Musk, like Dave Portnoy, who are constantly tweeting and causing the price to fluctuate.
And I'm glad you mentioned Elon because like if you just stop for a second to think, if Elon Musk went on SNL and decided to say the same exact things, or on Twitter the exact same things as what he's saying with Bitcoin about Tesla stock or some other stock, how how deep in trouble he would be with the SEC right now, how far up the creek without a paddle he would be right now. It's not a question. He would be most likely be in prison.
Yeah, but with Bitcoin,
It's I do
uh,
whatever I want.
yeah, exactly, you know.
I would say that a lot of the
But
yeah, sorry, continue, Farhan.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I think regulation, if there was to regulation was to come into crypto, to Bitcoin, I think that would make it a much better. I still don't know if I would invest my money in it. Just typically, I don't understand crypto that much. I like to stick to my stocks. All right, give me Apple, give me Nvidia, give me Microsoft. That's what I like. But I think if there was regulation to it and stuff like Elon Musk tweeting causing the price to move like 10% within minutes wasn't happening, I think at that point it would be a much better investment for people who are bullish towards Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And coming back to what you said, how, somebody will think maybe from a country with a poor currency, right? Well, okay, I'll put my money in crypto or in Bitcoin, hope that it rises, and then, take out more. Now, that's kind of where, now this is where I stand. My thing is, how can you know fundamentally the fluctuations in price of Bitcoin? Because what drives that fluctuation in price, right? I mean, it's a non-correlated asset. There's no intrinsic value to it. You can't you can't buy things with it yet, at least. I mean, the value that's assigned to it and the value that's taken away from it is done by the people, and somebody could argue that the same is done with stocks, but clearly not, because that's backed by a whole company and their operations. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah,
Sorry, Nuwair, you go because I'm gonna go on a rant.
yeah, no, I was just saying that. I mean, there are certain things that people have been trying to get Bitcoin involved, or like allowing people to buy certain things with Bitcoin. But again, it's not mainstream. Um, and yeah, like people, like you said, of these countries where their currency isn't as stable, and they want some place to put it. Because I don't remember I don't remember what country, but I was just reading up on it that a bunch of people lost their money from banks and stuff because something happened in the economy. There was a full government change. There was a takeover, and then their money's just gone. It was You can think of it as like a full Ponzi scheme, except in a government that happened, and then people just lost their money. And at that point, people are like, okay, well, that would have happened to me in crypto, so let me put more money in crypto. So again, there's that incentive for people to put their money in crypto again. But then again, like we said, it's way too volatile.
So
Okay, but that ties back. Sorry, Alex. I'm just
yeah,
say this
yeah,
one
yeah.
point, then you go. That again ties back to blockchain, which I personally, and I think all of us here agree that blockchain is here to stay and blockchain is the future. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Alex, go ahead with your point.
So my overarching opinion on Bitcoin is, as it stands right now, the argument for the use case, or like I'm going to use Bitcoin to pay for my rent, is completely unsubstantiated, as you can see by the monthly chart. If you decided to put all your money to buy, like, oh, if this only goes up, let me spend 10 grand now, and then by the time November rolls around, I'm going to have a couple months free rent. That clearly didn't pan out for you. So the use case for payments, something like rent or that, like let's say I owed Farhan $20 for a bet. If I sent him $20 of Bitcoin, by the time he gets it, it's going to be either 21 or it's going to be 19. And then
Yeah.
and additionally, the 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 incentive for nefarious use cases of Bitcoin is very large. We're talking about, like, sure, the use case of using it in a country like Venezuela, where your country's currency is not very stable, it exists. But, like, if you think about it, like a drug deal is almost ideal for Bitcoin because it's untrackable. And you don't, like, if you're doing a $10,000 nefarious dealing or off the book purchase, all you need is your phone and the other person's phone to send the Bitcoin over. You don't have to wheel in a briefcase anymore with 10 grand. All you need is the Bitcoin on your phone. So I think the government is going to, especially in the United States, the SEC and the Fed is going to be looking into that, because I think they really do like to track what people are doing with their money. But in terms of blockchain, that's here to stay. Stable coins, as they're so called, as I believe, where it's backed by a dollar, where it's this is worth this, it doesn't fluctuate, here you go. That's here to stay. Like, the perfect example of blockchain implementation in my mind is, if you think of JP Morgan, they came out with their JPM coin, which exists only internally within the bank for the sole purpose of moving money around, because something like $7 trillion goes in and out of the firm in a day, and the blockchain allows them to move it faster. So something like that is not going away. However, thinking that Bitcoin is somehow a currency that you can pay with is unsubstantiated, because tomorrow everyone can decide we don't like Bitcoin anymore and it could be worthless, or everyone can decide it's $1 million and then it's skyrocketing. There's too much volatility in it to be something for payments.
Yeah, no, blockchain definitely cutting out that middleman is kind of what you were saying, basic sort of cutting out that middleman, especially with money transfers, is going to be a huge thing. I believe personally in the future. We already know that it allows users to the public access of money transfers, cutting out that middleman. I mean, what's like sending wire transfers? Let's say I'm sending wire transfers to my cousin who lives in, I don't know, we're talking about Venezuela, lives in Venezuela. Like I'm paying a lot of extra money on top, to get that money out there. I don't know what the rates are like right now. And using blockchain is supposedly, supposed to almost cut that fee, not even in half, but almost just cut it out. And so yeah, I definitely think I'm bullish on blockchain. I'm in the blockchain stocks. I'm everything for blockchain.
And I
Crypto a little bit less. I know we probably sound like, a couple of grandpas, over here talking about how crypto's nothing, but that's definitely not what I think. I think there's money to be made in crypto, definitely, but fundamentally, I stay away from it. Because I like to be safe with my money, but there's definitely money to be made.
and I think
Definitely
most
money to be made there.
people would agree that Bitcoin isn't, I mean, definitely not yet to be used as a currency. And in the future, that's not, a lot of people who are bullish on Bitcoin won't make the claim that, oh, it's the currency of the future. And I mean, you just think of it. Okay, when someone has Bitcoin and the value of Bitcoin goes up, okay, when they pull that Bitcoin out and they sell it, what do they take it out for? The dollar. Okay, if it's the currency of the future, I mean, why are you taking it out then? Just keep your Bitcoin. But no, you're taking it out for the dollar. Why? Because the dollar is used everywhere.
Nuwair said it best. But
Very,
I guess there's
very good
people.
point. Very good point.
Yeah, no, you literally said it best. But I guess there's people who, will are bullish on the fact or like think that it'll some one day get regulated and be turned into a real currency. But I think we've made enough points to kind of explain or at least give our opinion on why that probably is
And I mean, we could go
the
on for
case.
like
Yeah, I could
hours
be here
on
all day.
Bitcoin. Yeah.
We could go on forever, definitely, yeah. But money to be made, money that I'm missing out on.
Right. I,
I'm not in
I,
Bitcoin.
me, personally, I don't. The word Bitcoin and investment should not be in the same sentence unless the word not is in there as well. There's certainly money to be made. That's true of any sort of asset. In the short term, I would say. But I would not even come close to classifying this as any sort of a long term investment. To me, I see it more of like going to a casino and going to the roulette wheel and putting it on black. You got a 50-50 chance or less with Bitcoin.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
speaking of money to be made, I mean, I think some of the biggest news in the stock market right now has been AMC going up 100%, people making a lot and a lot of money off that. So, what are your thoughts on that so far?
I mean, power to the people. You know what I mean? Go Reddit. No, but I think it's crazy, but I think that people are overlooking a little bit of the fundamentals with that. I mean, it's not necessarily like just a pump and dump as they say, right? There is a little bit more to it. But Alex, I'll let you say what you want. I'll
I,
say
I
my
don't
points.
I don't see this as a pump and dump in any way, and I don't think
Yeah.
anyone would describe it as a pump and dump. Um, and I think at this point, fundamentals have been thrown out the window. People don't care what the company is, even though the company has pulled some extremely smart moves in recent weeks, raising
Oh
upwards of
yeah.
like they have billions now on their balance sheet to the point of where they went from bankruptcy to looking for acquisitions. So that alone, the strength of the company is much higher. The executive team was very smart in that regard. Um, Additionally, like they did, a lot of the institutions that are stepping in for these private offerings are quite substantial. Like you have major hedge funds, I believe. I'm not sure, so don't quote me on it. But like Vanguard, BlackRock have stakes in AMC. Citigroup has stakes in AMC. Um, and like they didn't buy it a long time ago. Some of these people were paying $50 a share for AMC, and from my view, these hedge funds that are notorious for betting against it. It's almost like they're at a table playing poker. They keep getting dealt bad hands, but instead of walking away, they keep going back to the ATM and coming back to the table. You know what I mean? So if they keep doing that, who knows?
I think that's a good point as well, and I think people are under this false narrative as well of that it's only retail investors driving the price up. I think everyone needs to understand that these big hedge funds that these people of Wall Street bet, let's say, are going up against, they're also making tons of money on AMC. Like you have to. I mean, I don't know if I want to say stupid, but I mean, if you think that these hedge funds aren't making money off AMC and like didn't make money off GameStop, then I think you need to rethink that because they definitely got in because they have that money. And their money is a lot more than the money of retail investors. They're pumping in a lot more money. The price goes up even more, and then they just dump it off. I think hedge funds have made a lot of money off GameStop, AMC. What else was there? I think BlackBerry was another one. Yeah, hedge funds are heavily involved in all of this as well.
Nuair, if you can pop my screen up for a second, I'll show something.
Yeah, it's up.
So as it stands right now, the top institutional holder of AMC is Vanguard with 37 million shares.
There you go.
They are making a ton of money. And this is shares. who knows how many options they have? Because what was the
Yeah.
statistic last week? It was something like 11% of the options traded in the market were AMC options.
That's
That's
insane.
mad.
That's insane.
It's insane. Yeah, and then look at the top institutional holder is Vanguard Group, and then the top mutual fund holders, the top two are Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund and Vanguard Small Cap Index Fund. And then there's another one too. So Vanguard is deep in this right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like you cannot like everyone. I think a lot of people on Reddit and on Wall Street Bets think that oh we're fighting the hedge funds, we're winning this fight, but the hedge funds are making more money than they are because they have more money to spend. So you cannot get it twisted that these hedge funds they're also profiting off whatever's happening. I think the number one rule is the banks simply don't lose. The banks will always find a way to come out and make their money.
Right, but the key point I think that you're also trying to make is there's hedge funds that are betting against it, and there's hedge funds that are piling in on it with the little man, so to speak,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
are holding on for dear life until these, the hedge funds that are betting against it stop going to the ATM.
Yeah,
And eventually this thing's gonna get too high, and then the margin call is gonna close the ATM, and then it's oh boy.
yeah, and I think, yeah. So that was the point I was trying to make. That it's not just, Wall Street Bets against hedge funds. I would say it's hedge funds against other hedge
Against hedge
funds.
funds.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what's happening here.
100%.
Right.
Oh my God. But I mean, shout out to AMC, they were the beauty of the stock market, man. This is why we love finance. Look at a company that was almost bankrupt just a few months ago has now raised, what was it, like a couple million in capital just
Oh,
from
I think it
this
was it was
acquisitions.
at least 500 recently. At least 500 million recently. They sold
I
a
think
bunch
they
of shares.
raised 500 last week. 500,
Yeah,
maybe 700. I think the total cash that they have on their balance sheet just from raising at the market offerings, they went through all the stock that they had to offer, and then additionally they dipped into the executive compensation stock. So like the CEO would get a grant. So instead of that stock going to the board or the C-suite, they sold it at the market to make more money to put on the balance sheet. So I think they have somewhere around the $1.8 billion mark in cash on their balance sheet at the moment, which is huge.
That is that's phenomenal.
I mean, yeah, that's that
Beauty,
that is
beauty of the market.
that is the beauty of the market.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a good first podcast. Any final remarks before we start to close it off?
I think that's the best place to end it, right? With
Right, I think
the beauty of the market.
the beauty
That's
of
what the
the
market does.
market.
That's what finance is. It could either screw you or it could build you up from the bottom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
I mean,
But
it's
yeah,
been
thank you everybody for watching and tuning into the first official episode. Make sure to tune back in next week when we have a lot of fun bits coming out, a lot of more episodes. We're gonna bring some people on here as well. People are gonna fight us because I know there's some crypto and Bitcoin lovers
That would
who are not gonna like this
that
stuff.
would love to take a chunk out of
Um,
me.
so we're gonna have some people on here to who are gonna debate with us. You're gonna see both sides, so don't you worry about that. But yeah, any closing thoughts? Any closing words, you guys?
Don't forget to like, comment, all that stuff, all that fun stuff.
yeah.
Please let us know in the comments,
If you
and we will
disagree, if
see
you
you
agree,
guys.
write it all down
Yeah,
below.
exactly. All right, thank you guys again, and we will see you next week.